Hello, good afternoon. Casey Durango of Go Keto with Casey here, where I like to talk about how I've lost 97.4 pounds since starting the ketogenic protocol, how you might be able to lose weight, improve your health, and gain control of your life, just like I did. I hope you're well. We are well. Excuse me while I do a couple of little adjustments here and some housekeeping issues. If we lose connection, it is YouTube. It is not I, but the last couple of weeks have been okay. Second thing, my pink drink, hashtag Casey's pink drink. I get asked about it almost every time. Glass full of ice, diet tonic water, a splash of diet cranberry, and a squeeze of lime. It's very refreshing. I really only drink it on Saturdays during YouTube Live. So there we are. Today's topic, and to let you know, I will be talking about what I thought the topic should be, and then I will address comments from those of you who are attending. Thank you for those of you who allow me to be part of your Saturday or whenever you're viewing this. Today's topic, and I'm going to say this was inspired by a snippet topic suggestion from yesterday. I have a private Patreon support group, and I do 20 pre-recorded videos. I mean, I record them every weekday for patrons. And because I've done like 768 of them, I rely on suggestions from the patrons. So I have a spreadsheet. And this was a really great one. As a matter of fact, if I had been thinking ahead, I would have pulled it up and read you the what was written. But suffice to say that a patron wrote, she wanted to know, she's facing pushback from a particular family member, but family member in general. And the way it is framed from this family member is, how long are you going to keep up with this crazy diet? And followed by, you only live once. Life is short. Go ahead, have the cake. So I was going to talk about this topic, which is, I know that what I've done has been referred to as Casey's crazy diet. First of all, it's not my diet. Second of all, it's not crazy. But I think many of us have had this happen, that people look at us like we have monkeys on our face, when all we do is we're passing on the bread or the fries or whatever it might be. So anyway, yesterday I'm sitting, it's quite early morning, and I have the spreadsheet, I have everything set up for the recording. And as I often do, I read out loud to my lovely mate the suggestions that come up for these snippet topics. And so when it got to the part when the snippet topic suggestion read, life is too short, go ahead and have the cake. He said, that is the entire point. And this is my brilliant, lovely mate. His immediate reaction was, that's just the point. Life is too short to spend the rest of it feeling badly. Right? We don't know how much time we've got left. Tomorrow is promised to no one. Heck, this afternoon is promised to no one. So if life is short and we want to make the most of it, how are we going to make the most of it if we're saddled with insulin injections and pills and neuropathy and high blood pressure and high blood sugar and kidney malfunction and feeling gross and acid reflux and irritable bowel syndrome and aching joints and not wanting to wake up the next morning? I thought that was so smart. I never would have gone there. That would not have been the way I looked at it. But I really think this is important. Other people can look at and think of keeping your carbs low and burning fat for fuel as crazy. They are entitled. How do we think of it? Do we think of it as a new ticket to feeling better when we've been told, many of us, at a certain stage of life, it's not just implied The message is explicit. Once you get to a certain age, if you don't feel better and you haven't lost weight, ship has sailed on that one, sister or brother. And it's not true. Too many of us have come off of handfuls of medications that we're taking daily. Too many of us just had our joint pain dissipate because we laid off the carbs. Life is too short to go back to feeling cruddy, right? I think that was a fantastic way to frame it. Let others think that it's crazy. That's okay. I'm not sure what seems so sane about thinking that eating bagels and chips and Pringles and chocolate cake can be considered a sane, nutritious way to eat at all. That seems kind of crazy to me now that I have perspective. I mean, honestly, I never thought it was healthy. Even I couldn't delude myself that far. I liked it. It was delicious. And there were times I didn't eat. I was not just a bottomless pit of junk food. That was not the case. But I ate food that did not serve me well. Bagels, low fat. Huzzah! Let me eat a bunch of bagels. Well, bad advice, which I happily gobbled up. No pun intended. We have got to have enough affection for ourselves that no matter what somebody tells us we should be doing, when we know in our gut, again, sorry for the pun, we know in our gut that laying off the carbs and not eating when we're not hungry, no matter what we've been told how many times we should eat a day, no matter what an app tells us should be our calorie goal, no matter what, when we know different, we have to have the strength. Okay, excuse me, I put the dog outside, but there may be barking. My husband, I can see in the reflection, just pulled up in his big red truck. I put Jack outside because usually he goes very loud. Okay, it seemed to have worked. Thank you. I mean, has anyone else had this go on? What is that crazy diet? So I had a patron-only live stream just a little while ago, and a patron shared that her friends and coworkers thought that what she was doing was crazy. And I asked the question, hey, hon, asked the question, there he goes, there goes Jack. Why did they think it was crazy? Just because you weren't eating bread and pasta? Oh, no, because I wasn't. Sorry, there's Jack in the background. He's very happy to see my lovely mate. So am I, but I don't bark. Okay, Jack's going to run to his bed in just a second. Watch this in the background. Anywho, she said no, it's because she was not eating fruit and vegetables. See, there goes Jack. He gets his cookie and he goes in front of the fire. They thought that was crazy. Okay. It sounds logical that if you don't eat fruits and vegetables, you'll die real soon. But that's just because that's what we've been told, not because that's what's true. Right? Just because that's what we've been told does not mean that that's what's true. Do what works for you. For those of you who don't know, the ketogenic protocol is one whereby you reduce your carbohydrate intake to a level where your liver does not push out glucose for fuel, because what happens is you eat a sufficient amount of carbohydrate and it gets processed in the liver and out comes glucose, which is sugar. You reduce it and the glucose tap is turned off. So what happens? Our bodies go from burning sugar or glucose for fuel to burning fat or ketones for fuel. It's a beautiful mechanism. And what happens when we burn fat for fuel? A lot of things. We have a nice, good energy source, a good fuel for the human body, and our appetite is naturally suppressed, and inflammation is reduced, and hyperinsulinemia is reduced. Hyperinsulinemia is when you have a whole bunch of insulin flowing through your system because it's trying to keep your blood glucose low. Because if you have too much glucose in your blood, it's type 2 diabetes, no es bueno. So all of this mechanism is, the solution is keep your carbs low. A good rule of thumb is 20 grams of carbohydrate per day, total carbs, not net, or fewer. Don't eat if you're not hungry. Stop when you're satiated. I will not lie. Not eating when not hungry and stopping when satiated are by far the most challenging parts for me, and other people have reported very challenging for them as well. But it works if you give yourself some time. The protocol is simple. It's like 4 sentences, which is not to say that it's easy. 2 different things. In our Patreon group, and I do want to acknowledge, because I can already see some patrons are here. And to quick recap, my Patreon, Go Keto with Casey Patreon private group, 20 videos a month at my kitchen table, pillow hair, no makeup, incoherent sometimes. 5 or 6 patron-only video live streams on Crowdcast a month, 5 or 6 patron-only video group sessions a month on Zoom, and one-on-ones with me. There you go. Oh, and access to a hidden private Go Keto with Casey Patreon Facebook group. The only good use of Facebook that I can think of. So, what was I going to say about that? There was a reason I brought it up now. I can't remember. Oh. It's a support group. Not to learn what a carbohydrate is, although if someone has a question, then it will be answered to the best of my ability. But because the food is easy. It's the dealing with somebody who says, are you still on that crazy diet? Or when are you going to go off that diet? When are you going to reintroduce carbs? For me, I'm not going to. Why not? Why would I? Here's a trick. If somebody asks you a question, answer them with a question or respond with a question. When are you going to go back to eating carbs? Why would I? Make them answer their own question. Well, because you've lost all the weight you need to lose. And how would going back to what I did when I was fat help? We have to stand up for ourselves. If someone is so insulted by the way we eat that it impacts our relationship, we have to examine what that relationship was. Right? And sometimes, friendships come for a reason and for a season. And if people enjoyed being around us because we were all sitting around eating pizzas and breadsticks and giant brownies for dinner twice a week from, our favorite pizza delivery place, if that was our relationship, and now we don't eat pizza, at least not the crust, and the breadsticks and the chocolate brownies, and they feel self-conscious about the fact that they are, maybe it wasn't that deep a friendship. But that's okay too. Now, not so easy when it's family. This is where it gets trickier. But just because they're family doesn't mean they get a vote on what we eat. Nobody gets a vote on what I eat. I don't know about you. Even my lovely mate does not get a vote on what I eat or don't eat. Fortunately, we pretty much eat the same way, but not everyone has that luxury. And keep in mind, my lovely mate started this way not because he had a weight issue he never has had. He's never had an unhealthy relationship with food. He wanted to be healthy. He heard the same lectures I was listening to. By the way, I listen to lectures, not YouTube channels. I don't listen to even those anymore. I mean, the lectures. So he heard the same lectures I was hearing about improved health in general. So we started it because guess what? Life is too short to spend one day of it feeling cruddy. Life is too short. You only live once, right? But as Mae West said, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. I wanted to make that point. In truth, I have considered scaling way back on the Saturday YouTube live streams saturation and all that. Plus, I've got things to do. But I really felt like I had something to say today because I so appreciate this patron being very transparent. She wrote that her mother is the one doing this, her type 2 diabetic mother, who is suffering the downstream ill effects of type 2 diabetes, is saying these things to her, these words. I really appreciated her putting that out there because here's what some of us how we can feel. That we're struggling, or the wolf is always at the door, or there's temptation. Why am I being tempted and no one else is being tempted? We find out that we're all tempted. I'm tempted. I'm tempted. I don't struggle. That's too strong a word for it. I did before. I had many at-bats of doing a low-carb diet. I knew since 1977 that it worked. I was in college. I got a copy of the new Atkins Diet Revolution. And because life is so funny, I'm now friends with Jackie Eberstein, who ran that Dr. Atkins clinic with Bob Atkins until he passed. By the way, from a bump on the head, slipping on the ice, not from the diet. That's how life is. We're friends. Who could have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? But I knew since 1977 it worked. And I knew a couple of times throughout my obese years that it worked. And I would do well, and then I would get challenged, and then I would eat the bagel, which led to more bagels, which led to mashed potatoes and tequila. So we all have struggles. Here's a card that will be going out to many of the patrons. I can acknowledge temptation without indulging it. And this is key. We're going into this end of the year tsunami of food. No matter what your cultural background is, your ethnicity, your nationality, there's a lot of food that comes at the end of the year. And we're going to be around it. Okay, so one of the patrons on this live stream earlier today, I asked, is anyone sensing that they are going to have challenges in the next, 2-3 weeks? By the way, we're almost out of 2020. Look at my t-shirt. Keto plus 2021. Bring it. Avocado. Go keto with Casey. Oh, we're almost at the end. There's a really funny Match.com commercial that shows Satan in 2020. If you haven't seen it, it's actually pretty clever. So she wrote, yes, the holiday platters of sweets. And then she added, baking with the family. She acknowledges this is going to be a challenge. So I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, how can she deal with this? And one of the ways is pre-arming yourself with the idea I'm stronger than a cookie. Just a t-shirt for that below. Or in a sticker. And a mug. By the way, you don't have to buy anything to be 100% successful at the ketogenic protocol. Nothing. You want a mug? Get a mug. So, okay, pre-arm myself. I'm not going to eat the baked goods. And then I said, well, you could do something if it's of your, if it's in something that you would do. Be scandalous and pour yourself a glass of Merlot. And while everyone else is rolling out, sugar cookies and doing them, and you're standing there, you could roll them out too, and then you're taking a swig of Merlot. But ultimately, think about the idea. What's the point of baking with family? Is it the baking part, or is it the family part? You say, oh, we're getting together and baking, and this is this great tradition that we do. Well, what if, imagine there was a shortage of flour and sugar. Not that we could ever imagine that, but imagine it was World War II, and you could not get flour and sugar because it was rationed. Would you say, well, if we can't bake together, no one bother, just stay home? No. The experience is not enhanced by eating the cookies. The experience is enhanced by the relationships. You wouldn't say, if I can't bake with you, I don't want you in my house. Oh, you'd say, let's play charades or break out the Monopoly or go for a walk or let's trim the tree. Forget about the food. We just need to adjust our thinking. It's all in our heads. That's not in our heads. That sounds dismissive. Like, oh, it's all. My mother was told it was all in her head that she was kind of not feeling really great when she first got married in Denver, Colorado, on an Army Air Force base. She was 19 and just got married. It turns out it wasn't in her head. It was in her uterus. She had twins. But of course, it's all in your head, honey. So we have to think about this. We are stronger than a cookie. We can acknowledge temptation. It's not a failure to be tempted. It's not a failure to give into it. It's just a choice, But don't say the temptation made you do it. Like the old Flip Wilson thing, the devil made me do it. No, it's a choice. That's okay. Own it. If you say, I decided to eat these snickerdoodles, that's your choice. Don't say, I cannot resist snickerdoodles, because we can resist snickerdoodles. We can. Now, having made a couple of points, which I'm going to recap. That crazy diet, it may seem crazy to them, but what's so crazy about eating food that makes you feel better? Doesn't seem crazy to me. And life is too short. Life is too short. Exactly. So I'm not going to spend mine on dialysis or not feeling like getting off the sofa or not being able to walk my dog around the block or spending 15% of my income on medications. Life is too short. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lay off the carbs because that works for me. You do what works for you. Laying off the carbs works for me. And if I can do this, guys, you can do this. 100% guaranteed. I was morbidly obese for 30 years. Go to my blog, look at my before photos. They weren't even before. They were mid-range. I was much heavier at some points. But anyone who took those photographs has probably been disappeared, if you know what I'm saying. So let me turn to comments because I do want to acknowledge people who show up. Thank you so much. Hey, Debbie Longenacre, yay, finally back catching alive. Hey, ketogenic, Cindy, that's fantastic. What did Cindy say? Cindy C writes, I get the side eye when I say I'm keto or refuse carby foods, but numbers don't lie. May 31st, A1C 6.9, average fasting blood sugar 222. Went keto July 5th. By August 31st, so essentially 7 weeks, A1C 5.6. By November 30th, I think you mean 30th, there's no November 31st, A1C of 5, and doc removed me from one of my diabetic meds. That is beautiful. Congratulations. Numbers don't lie. Okay, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm sorry for anyone I've missed. Thank you. Enjoy ketogenic. People get uncomfortable when they want to indulge, and you're not. That's it. People say, is that all you're eating? It's not really that they care that that's all you're eating. It's like, if that's all she's eating, can anyone see how much I'm eating? No one cares. I don't care how much anybody else eats. I don't care what they eat. I don't get a vote on what anyone eats. No one. If I'm asked a question, I will answer to the best of my ability. If someone wants help and support, I will do my best. But other than that, it's none of my business. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Casey, people treat you like you belong to a cult. Hello, right? See, it was so crazy. Hey, Joni. Yay, good morning, beautiful Kay. Oh, thank you very much. Joni, how are you doing? How are you doing? Jennifer Lemieux, I'm fortunate that the family in my bubble is also keto. And you know what? Hey, Judy Tucker, Judy's lost 130 pounds. I just can't get over that. And she's a farmer. So she farmed at 130 pounds heavier. I can't imagine. I always think of you, Judy, as loading yourself up on one of the tractors. It's just the chores that are involved between the calving and the milking and the lambs and the sheep and the ducks and the geese and the dogs and the snow and the crops. Shell F writes, I really don't eat a whole lot. Pretty boring, LOL. I don't eat a whole lot either. We need less food than we think, particularly as we get older and we grow smaller. Although we don't grow smaller, it sounds like an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp. But we grow smaller as we lose weight. We need less fuel. It really makes sense. Roz writes, carb addiction is real. For me, one cookie is too many. The whole bag is not enough. And Joni writes, I'm doing okay, just plugging away to get through the dang 2020. Do yourself a treat. Try to find that Match.com commercial with Satan. It's pretty funny. And this is what gives me hope, is that people, as many harebrained, knuckleheaded people there are some very clever and creative people in the world. We have to take hope. Roz writes, I just had surgery and am struggling to stay on track, even though I have lost 100 pounds on keto intermittent fasting. Roz, what part are you struggling with? What part of eating carbs would help you recover from surgery? Most people report that their recovery from surgery is improved when they're burning fat for fuel. And this is not a judgment. I'm asking the question. Because when we start breaking it down, why? What will carbs do for me? For me, it just made me puffy and not feel very well. Shell F writes, that commercial is hilarious. It really is. And the makeup on Satan, outstanding. Does anyone have a question for me personally? I'm not that, I'm an open book, but I'm not that interesting. I mean, I just laid off the carbs finally because I didn't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. And that's where I was heading. I was on track to be one of those people that are taking 9 pills a day. And I had tried move more, eat less, the summer of the triathlons, the, gym membership, the ginormous spreadsheet where I was calculating so not to get, more than 5% of my calories from fat and 60% of my calories from carbohydrate. Heather, hey, Heather, I can eat whatever I want, but why would I want to eat stuff that makes me feel terrible? Will take over my life and never make me feel full. Shell F writes, did your hubby finally come home, Casey? You must have not heard me say, hey, babe. He just walked in from flying. He did. He arrived Sunday of last week after a 21-hour excursion. Let me tell you about my husband. Again, man has never had a weight issue. He put on maybe a little bit of weight after he turned 50 around his tummy, and he went keto, and he got to his ideal weight in 18 hours. So he had this long day of flight to Colombia and back from. His family. Okay, here's a cute story. His cousin, with whom he stayed a little bit in Pareda, he spent most of his time on the farm, our coffee farm. But they packed him up with these almond cookies that I make for him, or he makes for himself if he needs to, but they are keto in that he can tolerate them. I don't do them. Almonds, coconut oil, Splenda, vanilla extract, an egg, and a pinch of salt. They packed him up with some of these cookies and a bunch of string cheese. So sweet. So he kind of had that. And then he got a couple of cups of coffee in Washington. He had a 10-hour layover in Washington, D.C. I thought this was fascinating. On one of the airplanes, they gave him a little what's the brand? Nature Valley granola bars. But it was a little tiny one. It's almost like the little samples, small. They gave him one. And he, said, I'm not going to eat that. But, he got pretty hungry. It was 20 hours. So they gave him that on the way down. He came back with half of this little package still intact, folded up, because he looked at the label. It's a granola bar, right? We all thought that was health food. I used to buy cases of those for our kids and for me and for everyone. We had the Nature Valley granola bars. They're granola. They're healthy. No, they're sugar. Anyway, this tiny little one in this tiny little bar, of which he had eaten half over the course of 2 days of travel. That bar is 18 grams of carbohydrate. And I'm saying it was this big. So we ate that much of it. So that was about, 4.5 grams of carbohydrate, but he can tolerate it. He came home in ketosis, by the way. But you just have to be conscientious about what you put in your mouth. He made the decision to eat a little bit and not more. Twyla, hey, Twyla, she's a patron. Roz, it helps me to remember all that I have gained and what I can do now and how I feel. And Ann Etherington writes, how do you stay consistent? Love Annie. You're asking me, I stay consistent by staying consistent. And I do not mean that to be smart alecky. Your answer lies within the question. Stay consistent. Don't think about what you're going to do for the next 6 months, week, year, 10 years, rest of your, think what you're going to do today. And then do it. And then tomorrow, same thing. If you need to get started, don't wait for January 1st. I mean, do if you want to, but you don't need to wait for January 1st or a Monday or the 1st of any month or after somebody's wedding or after somebody's birthday or after the next holiday, because there's always a wedding, a birthday, a holiday, a retirement party, a baptism, a funeral. Always. The next time you put food in your mouth, lay off the carbs. And the next time you eat after that, lay off the carbs. There you go. And then you do it. And then it becomes habitual, just as we became habituated to eating all the junk food, and every night, every Thursday night is pizza night. And those are habits we created through consistency, right? We were consistent building those habits. How do you change that? Create new habits and do it consistently. Purette McGregor writes, you have quoted my friends perfectly. Thanks again for another great video. You mean, what, when are you going to come off that crazy diet, and, how are you getting your nutrients and all that stuff? Yeah, so people are ill-informed. Shell writes, oh, sorry, missed it. I'm glad he made it. Okay, my hubby's blood sugar was below 80 today. 40 pounds lost in 5 months. He's a believer. Fantastic. See, we slowly influence others. Carrie Hart writes, I had my appendix out in August 2019. Gained 20 pounds since. I gained 10 pounds the day after surgery. No change in diet. Still keto. No cheating. Just now ditched the sweetener, hoping that helps. Some people find non-sugar sweeteners impact them. They don't impact me that I know of, nor my husband that I know of. So you have to find what works for you. Plus, keep in mind, you can be strictly keto and overeating. You could be essentially 5 grams of carbohydrate a day and eating way too many calories. We don't count calories, but calories count. So, yes, 18 grams in a tiny little Nature Valley granola bar. Yes, 18 grams. Joni writes, wow, your hubby did fabulous. Well, have willpower, be consistent, and stay the course. There you go. I'm gonna suggest not doing the willpower thing, because that makes it sound. Let me finish my thought and then I'll come back to it. Be consistent, stay the course. That's all you need to know. Be consistent, stay the course. Willpower has come to be, in my mind, identified with people who struggle have no willpower. No. Okay, I've been diagnosed and treated for cancer 3 times in my life. Once when I was pregnant with our third child and 2 more. I mean, it sucks. I don't consider myself a cancer survivor. I don't like the phrase. I consider myself a cancer participant because I happened to develop cancer and I was a sugar burner all 3 times. Not that big and fat burner, is a shield. But anywho, because what do you mean I'm a survivor? I just followed the treatment. Does that mean that people who have passed, including my father and my beloved brother, were not survivors? Did they lack willpower? Did they lack strength? No. So I don't like the whole willpower thing because that's, just exercise your willpower. Oh, thank you very much for your input. But be consistent and stay the course. That's actual behavior. Willpower is some nebulous thing. Be consistent, which we can do, and stay the course. You okay in there, man? My husband's coughing, not COVID. I'm going to guess that he's eating a cookie and it's going down sideways. Lita, hey, Lita. True. I can't have artificial sweeteners. I'll gain weight. K Rep writes, I got to a point where I just had to begin. It was a Thursday, the last day of April, sticking to it since. I started January 8th, 2014. I don't know what day of the week it was, but it wasn't the first of the year. It wasn't after. You just have to do it. Bacon is life. Carrie Hart writes, Lita, I apparently will too. LOL. The surgery changed something. I mean, gained 10 pounds in the hospital without even eating it. Okay, I will say this. If you do not ask, and you nurses, I know there are nurses here in the group, you have to ask for an IV that is not dextrose laden. And someone correct me if I'm wrong. And you can request it. Please make sure that my IV does not have sugar in it. Because otherwise they default to sugar. And then you have to, go through all this other stuff. Get you the surfer girl. How do we connect for coaching? Thank you. Well, thank you for the question. There are a couple of ways. You can go to my blog and there's a coaching tab and you can just do a one-off. Frankly, I'll be really honest. The more economical way is to become a patron. Actually, I'm full up on the coaching. Anyway, reach out to me. Go to my blog and send me an email. Now I know, writes Carrie. Leah writes, Carrie, that's awful. I'm sure you will get it off. You will. I know there's got to be a nurse here because there are a lot of people in the medical community that are, in this. And by the way, thank you very much. And please stay safe. Why do people constantly offer lollipops? I accepted one yesterday and threw it right out in front of them. All in good fun. Gidget writes, Patreon. Okay, thank you. And Alita writes, I asked for a sugarless IV bag the last time I was in the ER. And you can do it. Just make sure. And I double check. It's like when last time we were at a restaurant a long time ago, I asked for Coke Zero or Diet Coke. And I'll ask them, is this Diet Coke or Coke Zero? Yes. Are you sure? Because you don't want me dying in your station. You won't get a tip. Because it's just things hooked up and sometimes people don't pay any attention. And it's within our power to ask these questions. Not within our power, it's our right. Alrighty then. What was I going to say? Oh, by the way, people become members of my Patreon group, as I often say, not to get access to me, but to get access to each other. We find out that we have much more in common than we have different. Even though all of our backstories are different, there are people of many nations here, different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, different upbringing, stages of life, genders. We have much more in common than we have different, which is kind of a good rule of life to keep in mind. So, thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. Keep your carbs 20 grams or fewer a day. Total.net. If it's not on page 4, link below. Don't eat it, although you don't need a food list. Just keep the carbs low. Don't eat if you're not hungry. Stop when you're satiated. Oh, if you want a calendar, they're going fast. When they're gone, they're gone. 2021 Go Keto with Casey calendar with a bunch of stuff. And patrons get a discount, don't forget. Alrighty then. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. God willing, and the creek don't rise.